Everything you've been told about death, it's a lie. It's not the end, not an empty void, not a mystery left to blind faith or speculation. For over a millennium, a forbidden manuscript has remained hidden from the masses, a lost roadmap, detailing the first 49 days after death. A guide not meant for the faint-hearted, but for those ready to see beyond the illusion. For over a millennium, a forbidden manuscript has remained hidden from the masses, a lost roadmap, detailing the first 49 days after death. A guide not meant for the faint-hearted, but for those ready to see beyond the illusion. This ancient text, known as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, was once reserved for the most enlightened minds, those who could confront its truths without fear. It doesn't describe death as an ending, but as a gateway, a test. One that determines whether you escape the endless cycle of reincarnation or remain trapped, blind and unprepared. The moment your body takes its last breath, something extraordinary happens. A process begins, one that shapes your next existence, your next reality. But here's the catch. If you don't understand what's happening, you'll be swept away by forces beyond your control. Ancient wisdom tells us that the transition isn't random. It follows a structure, a sequence, a pattern that can be navigated. You know how. And those who master this knowledge, they hold the key to ultimate liberation. But why has this knowledge been hidden? And who benefits from keeping humanity in the dark? Stay with me, because what you're about to discover could change everything you thought you knew about life, death, and what comes after. Everything you've been told about death is incomplete. It's not an ending. It's not an empty void. And it's certainly not a mystery left to blind faith. For over 1,000 years, a forbidden manuscript has remained hidden, containing a roadmap to what happens in the first 49 days after death. This ancient text, known as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, was once reserved only for the most enlightened minds, those capable of facing its truths without fear. According to this manuscript, death is not the final breath. It is the beginning of a test that determines whether you break free from the endless cycle of life and death, or fall back into reincarnation. Unprepared and unaware. Most people fail this test. Not because they are weak, but because they do not recognize what is happening. They are blind to the illusions, unaware that everything they see, hear, and feel after death is merely a projection of their own mind. And by the time they realize it, it's already too late. If this ancient knowledge is true, then the first moments after death are more important than the entire life you've just lived. And it all begins with one crucial event. The moment you leave your body behind. The moment you step beyond the physical world, where reality as you know it doesn't stop, it transforms. The first moments after death, the light beyond. You don't simply vanish. Instead, something else takes over, something ancient texts have whispered about for over 1,000 years. A sudden weightlessness. A strange detachment. It feels like waking up from a dream, but this time, the dream was your entire life. Your heartbeat fades, your breath disappears, yet, you are still aware. You know something is different, but your mind refuses to accept it. If you've ever had an out-of-body experience, this moment will feel eerily familiar. But this time, there is no return. And then it happens. A brilliant, blinding light. It is unlike anything you've ever seen. Not just light, but pure existence itself. Overwhelming, infinite. It does not burn, yet it consumes you entirely. This is what the ancient Tibetan texts call the light beyond reality. If you recognize it, if you surrender to it completely, you won't just see the light, you will become it. You will dissolve into pure awareness, breaking free from the endless cycle of birth and death. Enlightenment, in an instant. But here's the terrifying truth. Most people, they miss it. Because in that moment, fear takes hold. The mind clings to the familiar. And just like that, the light fades, and the cycle begins again. The first illusions. Trapped by the mind. No one recognizes it. Why? Because we have been conditioned to fear the unknown. The soul hesitates. It clings to what it knows, its past, its identity, its regrets, its unfinished desires. Instead of surrendering to the light, it resists. And in that moment, something changes. Fear takes hold. And the illusions begin. Faint at first. A whisper in the void. An echo of a voice you almost recognize. But it's wrong. Distant. Distorted. As if calling to you from behind a thick veil. Then, the world around you shifts. The pure, radiant light starts to fade, replaced by shapes, patterns, shadows moving just beyond your perception. They morph, flicker, take form. You see faces, places, moments from your life, but twisted like reflections in a rippling pond. Your mind tries to grasp them. Are they real? Are they memories? Or something else entirely? Then, a figure appears. A familiar presence. Perhaps a lost loved one. A guardian. A guide. They extend a hand, their voice soothing. Follow me. But here's the truth. This is the greatest deception of all. Because in this moment, what you see is not the real world. It's a projection woven entirely by your own mind. A final, desperate attempt to make sense of the unknown. And if you don't recognize the illusion for what it is, you will be pulled back into the cycle of birth and death, back into another life, another forgetting, unless you wake up. The Bardo, the 49-day afterlife journey. When you awaken, you find yourself in the Bardo, the space between life and the next existence. Time no longer flows the way it did when you were alive. Seconds stretch into eternity, yet entire days can pass in the blink of an eye. You have no body, no voice, only awareness. But here's the problem. Most people don't realize they've died. They're trapped in a dreamlike state, clinging to the echoes of their past life, unable to accept that everything they once knew is gone. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes the Bardo as an unstable, shifting realm, a place where reality bends and distorts, where thoughts manifest into things, and where the mind itself shapes the experience. Every fear, every desire, every hidden emotion that was buried in life now takes form before your eyes. The journey through this realm lasts exactly 49 days, unfolding in stages, and for most, it's a terrifying process. At first, confusion reigns. The soul attempts to return home, to reunite with loved ones. It lingers around familiar places, trying to speak, trying to be seen, but no one responds, no one hears. Visions of peace and terror. Karma unfolds. As the soul journeys through the Bardo, it encounters celestial landscapes, radiant light, and beings of pure compassion. These luminous figures do not communicate with words, but their very presence radiates an overwhelming sense of peace. Some who have experienced near-death states describe them as angels, enlightened masters, or even gods. Yet, in truth, they are neither saviors nor judges. They are manifestations of the soul's own highest potential, reflecting the light of its purest state. If the soul recognizes them, it can transcend, but recognition requires clarity. And clarity is difficult to attain when the mind is clouded by fear. For those who spent their lives chasing desires, fearing death, or clinging to their identity, the illusions begin to distort. The radiant beings remain, but their forms start to shift. The soul watches as they flicker, twisting in and out of shapes, as if reality itself is beginning to unravel. Then, just as suddenly as they appeared, the beings fade. In their place, wrathful visions emerge. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes this moment in disturbing detail. As the days pass in the Bardo, the comforting figures vanish, replaced by dark, monstrous entities. These beings are terrifying beyond anything the soul has ever encountered. They roar with inhuman voices, their faces twisted in expressions of rage and chaos. Some have multiple heads, countless arms, or eyes that burn like fire. They appear as demons, executioners, or relentless pursuers, striking fear into the heart of any unprepared soul. This is the point where most souls panic. They run, they plead, they scream, but there is no escape. Because there is nothing to escape from. These terrifying figures are not real enemies. They do not exist outside the mind. They are projections of the soul's unresolved fears, its unprocessed emotions and deepest anxieties. The final test: rebirth or liberation. The Bardo is drawing to a close. The illusions have played their tricks, and the soul has faced its past reliving, every joy, every sorrow, every hidden thought that shaped its existence. After weeks of drifting through the in-between, the moment of decision arrives. This is the final test, the one that determines everything. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, this stage is described as the most crucial and difficult moment of all. The soul now stands at a crossroads. It must make a choice: either recognize the illusions and break free forever, or give in to its desires and fall back into the endless cycle of reincarnation. But here's the problem. Most souls don't realize they are even making a choice. By this point, the illusions have become so overwhelming, so convincing, that the soul barely remembers it is in the Bardo at all. The visions now take on a new form, one that feels different from everything before. They are no longer terrifying deities or fragmented hallucinations. Instead, they become familiar, comforting, even tempting. The Book of the Dead warns that in these final days, the soul will be offered a way out, but it is a trap. It sees visions of loved ones calling it back. Familiar places appear, drawing it in with warmth and nostalgia. The soul feels a deep longing, a pull toward something recognizable. These aren't mere hallucinations, they are glimpses of the next life the soul is about to enter. The karmic forces have already begun shaping the next incarnation, weaving the conditions of the soul's return. If the soul clings to these visions, if it allows itself to be pulled in, it is instantly swept into a new body, a new life, another cycle of forgetting. Rebirth happens instantly. The process is automatic. The moment the soul latches onto a desire, a fear, or an attachment, it is pulled into a new womb, a new reality with no memory of the choice it just made. The Book of the Dead describes this as falling into unconsciousness, a moment of deep forgetfulness, where the past life dissolves, and a new one begins. It's like waking from a dream with no recollection of where you just came from. And so, the cycle begins again: birth, suffering, death, and another return to the Bardo. The final truth about death. There's a secret most people will never realize. They will never prepare for death. They will live blindly, consumed by distractions, chasing illusions, fearing what they do not understand. And when the moment comes, they will be thrown into the Bardo confused, lost, and unprepared, just as they were in life. But here's the final truth. Death does not change you. It only reveals you. The Tibetan Book of the Dead does not describe an afterlife, the way most people think. It does not promise paradise for the good or punishment for the wicked. It does not pass judgment on anyone. Because the Bardo is not an external place. It is a mirror of your own consciousness. Everything you will experience after death, the clear light, the peaceful deities, the terrifying illusions, the life review, and the pull toward reincarnation is nothing more than a reflection of the mind you carried in life. If you lived in fear, you will die in fear. If you lived in attachment, you will cling to what is already gone. If you lived unconsciously, you will drift through the afterlife, the same way, reacting, grasping, and falling back into the cycle. But if you lived with awareness, if you trained your mind to see through illusion, if you prepared yourself while still alive, then in death, you will recognize the Bardo for what it truly is: a test, a transition, an opportunity. And that is the hidden secret guarded for over 1,000 years. The reason these teachings were once forbidden. Because if people knew the truth, they would stop fearing death. They would stop wasting their lives on things that do not matter. They would stop being controlled by false beliefs, by religious institutions, by governments that use fear to keep them obedient. A person who understands death is a person who cannot be manipulated. Because once you see the truth, once you understand that this life is only preparation for the next, everything changes. The way you think changes. The way you act changes. You no longer chase temporary pleasures or meaningless distractions. You no longer fear loss, because you know nothing was ever yours to begin with. You no longer cling to identity, because you realize it was never real. And when the moment comes when you take your last breath and cross the threshold, you will not panic. You will not grasp. You will not be pulled back into the cycle of forgetting. You will simply be aware. And in that awareness, you will have a choice. A real choice. To break free or to return. Most will never reach this point. They will move on from this video, return to their routines, forget everything they have just learned. And when the moment comes, they will be unprepared. But you don't have to be. If you've made it this far, you are already different. You are already seeking. And that is why we go even deeper inside Insights Academy, where we reveal the knowledge that cannot be shared here. Join now at the link in the description, and receive a free copy of the Keelan, because in the end, the mind is the only thing that determines what happens next. But everything you've just learned is useless unless you understand this final truth. Truth hidden in classified government documents. A truth that reveals exactly what happens after death in ways even the Tibetan Book of the Dead could not describe. Click the video on your screen right now to discover what they never wanted you to know. And if this message resonated with you, let us know in the comments by typing, "I understood."